mostly I want to consider really how egregious and how far some of these sinners had got, or how far they got deep in sin, and how God still forgave. I'm not going to read these, but if we all remember in Psalm chapter 51, we had the example of David, and who can remind me some of the things that David had done against God? Okay, he committed adultery with Bathsheba, which we all know how sin works. It's like a to cover up one, you got to keep sinning and doing others, and that's exactly what happened to David. He had to lie, and then he eventually committed murder. I'm sure in his eyes he didn't think it was murder. He's not the one that actually killed Uriah, but he's the one that definitely caused him to die, sending him on the front lines. He was as far as you can get, as far away from God as he'd probably ever been in his life. And we know God had not forgotten about him. And how do we know God didn't forget about him? Who went to see David about his problems? Nathan. And Nathan was what? He was a messenger from God. He was a prophet for God. And Nathan basically told him to his face about what? Yeah, hey, he told him a kind of a parable or kind of a little story about a man, how bad he was, and David agreed. This man's terrible. He should get the worst punishment ever. And then Nathan made him realize he was that guy. Did God forgive David? Yes, David repented. He knew he was wrong. And we saw how far David drifted. So God's loving kindness wasn't just because David was a man after his own heart, but we knew God must have been severely disappointed in David. We know how angry he must have been with David. He still was willing to forgive David. Let's not forget 2 Chronicles 33. Everybody remember Manasseh? What did Manasseh do? That was bad. Okay. Right. So the question is, what did he not do? The pagan worship, the idolatry, bringing altars in the temple. He said, like Carol said, he sacrificed his own children to gods, practiced sorcery, divination, witchcraft, consulted mediums of spirits, and shed a lot of innocent blood. Does anybody remember what happened between God and him? Okay, by who? Right. Very good. He sought God in his distress. He didn't seek the other gods he had been worshiping. He sought God, prayed to him, and God moved to then be on his side. He moved to forgive Manasseh. We need to think how bad Manasseh was. We need to think about Solomon as well. Solomon had kind of reached that point as Manasseh did in that part of his life. We don't talk about that in his lesson, but Solomon was very similar. How far he had gotten off the beaten path, and once again, God's always ready to forgive. And let's also not forget Acts 8 and 9, where we talk about Paul. We've been talking about Paul in this lesson. Paul considered himself the chiefest, had considered himself the chiefest of sinners. He wasn't just not worshiping God. He wasn't just not doing anything, not responding. He was literally causing the gospel not to spread, or trying to. He was trying to kill Christians. He was trying to do what he could to stop the gospel because he thought that was the right thing to do. He completely wreaked havoc in the church and killed many, many disciples of Christ. God forgave him of that. In fact, God not only forgave him, He trusted him to be one of the main contributors to the gospel, to the cause of Christ in the New Testament. These examples of forgiveness, to me, like I said, I just want to read these because there was. We kept saying in the last two classes, we got to forgive as God forgives, and God doesn't have a point where that's reached where He doesn't forgive. God doesn't have God doesn't have a sin total or how egregious the sin is. He's ready and willing to forgive whenever everybody's willing to change and repent. He's always going to be there to do that because He knows we are imperfect people and we make a lot of mistakes. It's certainly never a reason to take advantage of that. God don't expect us to live our lives that way, knowing He's always going to be ready to forgive. But that is the attitude we are supposed to have toward, if He can do that, I mean, certainly we can forgive something so small in perspective to these three men and some of the sins they committed. Anything else? We move on to being hospitable on one another. I wanted to get into some of those examples. And there's tons of other examples of God's forgiveness. I mean, we could spend 2 quarters on the Israelites and how many times God forgave them. But I just want to go through a few. Anything else on forgiveness before we move on to lesson 8? Okay. Let's go on and roll in to lesson 8. Thought it was a very good study. Being hospitable to one another. If somebody could please read for me 1 Peter 4:9. Is that 1 Peter 4:9? Yes, that is. Are I good there? Yeah, that's it. Thank you. You're good. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Okay, we're going to dig into that here in just a second. That verse, but hospitality. So we see there it's a commandment by God. It's not something that was something that was suggested. It appeared there more as a command. So that's one thing. We're going to get to the fact that we're not supposed to offer hospitality just because it's a command, but do understand it is a command. Okay, I don't think God wants us to do it begrudgingly and just being forced to do this. So we're going to get into that. I wanted to read what the writer said here. I think it's really good what he's talking about, where we've gotten with hospitality. So hospitality is one of those things that become a lost art over the last quarter of a century or so in America. And he kind of proposed a question, why is that possible when we have more money, it's easier to get around, we have so many time-saving devices between cell phones, microwaves, computers, and this endless communication devices, but there seems to be less hospitality, even though it's become more convenient to do so. There are still those, of course, that always offer it. Like I said, I think this church does a great job of doing that. I think many churches and many Christians around, not just here, do that great as well. But as a whole, even among Christians, there's the hospitality's kind of become a relic of the past. And some of the things that I think we do, or that I do, for sure, hospitality. After I did this lesson, I'm thinking, there's definitely a lot more I can be doing maybe is the next step or another level in hospitality. Once again, the writer's talking about how it's a shame it's got there. So our goal in this lesson is to understand a couple things. We talked about a second ago that we're going to talk about in a second. It's a commandment from God. So it's something that if we're not good at, we need to get there, because that's something God can hold us accountable for. We're going to get to the fact that there's a reason that's an eldership quality. I don't know if y'all read that, but that is a qualification to be an elder. Be hospitable. I'd say it's pretty important, and we're going to learn that this is another one of those things that is not really something. that we should have to choose every time, in the sense of this eventually, if we're doing what we're supposed to do, is supposed to become part of us. And you're going to see some examples we get in where it's a part, this attitude of hospitality has become a part of some of these individuals. It is not something that like they really have to weigh every time they do, should I do this, should I not do this? They just do it. Doesn't matter the person, doesn't matter it's the circumstance. So let's go on and get into, we'll get into some examples here in just one second. So in the denominational world, in just the world in general, whether agnostic or not, some Christians for some reason have decided this doesn't apply to them. They follow. They say I'm following all the. I'm doing. We kind of treat ourselves like the rich man. What else haven't I not done? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do in worship. I study the Bible all the time, but yet we find this one difficult sometimes to do. Let's say I'm talking nice to people. I'm always friendly when I greet somebody. Not that those aren't great things, and that's something we're supposed to do. But that's not the hospitality I don't think that we're talking about here, at least not for sure all the time. Somebody turn for me, we're going and read 2 here. Somebody turn to Romans 12:13, and somebody after that turn to Hebrews 13:1 and 2. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. And somebody go ahead and read Hebrews 13:1 and 2.
Let brotherly love continue. Do not forget to entertain strangers, or by so doing, you have unwittingly entertained angels.
Okay, so we have got the commandment before of it being a duty. This is a duty of Christians, but it's not a duty so much from God as a duty as it is toward one another. So notice he says, he prefaces, keep on loving each other as brothers or as brethren. Then he gives you the instruction, guide on how to do that. Okay, do not forget to entertain. Okay, what did you say, Mickey? Did you say entertain? Entertain. So it's kind of interesting. The word entertain used in the Bible. It's kind of weird to hear entertain being a commandment in the Bible. Of course, entertain being there don't mean like you're throwing a big party or a big event every time. But we're going to get to in a second that there was, and notice it says, have entertained angels without knowing it. We're going to dive into that one a little bit later on that part about entertaining angels. But there are specific examples in the Bible where that happened. If we go over to Genesis chapter 18, we're going to dive into these. Genesis chapter 18, somebody read verses 1 through 8 for me. Okay, very good. So what's going on here in this story? Did Abraham know who these men were? Okay, based on the commentaries I read, the pretty general consensus, he did not understand who these were. And who do we believe these were? Okay, that definitely, I think definitely angels and the Lord. Okay, so that's I've heard different things on that. One of them, a couple commentaries said that they think it might have been appearance like the Lord. So it could have been like more one that just appeared like the Lord, not necessarily being the Lord. And then the other part of the commentary, that more than likely it is the Lord. That was either way. The point of it is Abraham is entertaining who here? To him, strangers. And what does he do for them? Okay. Okay. Have you ever told some random guy come in your house and just wash up? We'll get you some. I'm going to get. And while you're doing that, I'm going to prepare some snacks for you and make sure you're comfortable. We'll watch some golf together here in a second. That's a great story, Carol. That is great. And that's the point, right? So Abraham saw three individuals, more than likely with not, and obviously if it's angels, I don't think they're coming here with, like a big sack of goodies on their back with food and everything. So more than likely they don't have anything with them, okay? So Abraham's like, these three people went randomly out here, probably don't have anything. So all he's going to is what thought? What did Carol just say? They need something. And he didn't appear to ask them, do you need anything? He just said, just come over here and rest, and I'll take care of you. To me, like I said, what I'm drawing from that is Abraham already has this attitude a part of him. I would venture to guess this is not the first time he has done this for someone. This is an example that we give here in the Old Testament. But he has the attitude, and obviously his wife Sarah had no hesitance either, did she? She did exactly what Abraham said and took care of these men. I mean, couldn't she have had a little radar up? We got three guys out there. We don't know who they are. I mean, aren't you going to at least like ask them what's going on? Like, why don't they have anything like with them? I don't. So this is two very, very devout people who have hospitality as part of them. It's part of what they've worked to become as followers of God, and they consider that to be a trait to be a follower of God. The writer even said, "Who knows?" Does anybody remember what happens right after this? Okay, and then a little bit after that, Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, so I mean, obviously those things probably still would have came to fruition. But remember, Abraham had a kind of a part in some of those things when those took place. We don't know exactly how all that would have came to fruition if Abraham would have just told these people just pass on by. I mean, it's kind of an interesting thought. Anyway, what thoughts did you guys have? What other thoughts did you guys have on the who or the whom? I think we established that. But if you guys have other thoughts on who else this might be, and other thoughts about his attitude. Anything else about Abraham and his wife here? good. Anybody else on that? Yeah, nobody talk about that. Ran. Yeah, very good. Ran and got what kind of calf? Yeah, mine says a choice tender calf. So I immediately thought of Abel when I heard that. So choice tender calf. Okay. Almost like a waiter, right? Yeah. Yeah. Servant. Yeah. Very good. Very good thought. Yes. Very good. So the running, like I said, running and picking the choice calf. That was also part of things I read, Roger, that could lead to believe that he may have at least indicated to him whether or not he knew exactly who this was, that maybe it was somebody from God or somebody special. And we're going to get into that in a second on the angels and some of these verses in the New Testament regarding angels in regards to being messengers from God. But that's a good thought. So he definitely was treating these men very special with how he was doing all those things that Brad just mentioned. Very good. Anything else on Abraham here? Yep, Carol, that's what we're going to get to. So if you hold that thought, we're definitely going to get to that. Yeah, I knew that was going to be a question that was asked. So that's a good one. So yeah, we're going to get to that. Hold that thought.
The definition of hospitality, it comes from a Greek word, philoxenia, and phileo we know is love, and the xenia is a guest or stranger. So it's really,
Yes.
we think hospitality is having our best friends over. That's important. But kindness, hospitality to a stranger, no matter his social class or background, I think it's more to it.
That's great. You look outside of Webster's, please, because Webster had a horrible definition, I thought, of hospitality. But the other one, Oxford and a couple other ones that you said that was put the word strangers in the definition. It was talking about strangers. So that I thought that was really, really good. Of course, even if it was, as Roger said, even if he knows who this is still strangers to him. Okay, well, whether or not he thinks they're of God or on behalf of God, these are still individuals he's never seen. So these are very much strangers to Abraham here and Sarah. Very good, very good. Anything else on Abraham? Okay, let's roll on to 1 Kings chapter 17. When somebody gets there, somebody read verses 7 through 16. Not everybody all at once. 7 through 16.
After a while, the brook dried up because there was no rain in the land. The word of the Lord came to him, "Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to feed you." So he rose and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, behold, a widow was there gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, "Bring me a little water in a vessel, that I may drink." And as she was going to bring it, he called to her and said, "Bring me a morsel of bread in your hand." And she said, "As the Lord your God lives, I have nothing baked, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. Now I am gathering a couple of sticks, that I may go in and prepare it for myself and my son, so we may eat it and die." And Elijah said to her, "Do not fear. Go and do as you have said. First make me a little cake of it, bring it to me, and afterward make something for yourself and for your son. For thus says the Lord God of Israel, the jar of flour shall not be spent, and the jug of oil shall not be empty, till the day that the Lord sends rain upon the earth." And she went and did as Elijah said. And she and he and her household ate for many days. The jar of flour was not spent, neither did the jug of oil become empty, according to the word of the Lord that he spoke by Elijah.
Okay, we're going to be getting to 4 other really good examples. But this is the one I circled about 8 times in my book. And one of the main reasons is what was going on in the land in 1 Kings here at the time. Major famine. Okay, and who's the him that she's talking to here? Okay, Elijah. Okay, we're talking to Elijah. Okay, and Elijah was needing what? Some water. He's going to need some food. He's struggling a little bit. Well, obviously, other people are struggling, and this woman of Zarephath, did I say that right? How do we pronounce that, Michael? Zarephath. She obviously has a little, but just enough for what? One more meal, it sounded like. Enough flour and one more meal, and then she's ready to go. She's basically giving in that after this meal, that's it, and me and my son are going to die. And so we're going to get into hospitality, but it wouldn't have shocked me. I mean, she didn't make it there, but it would not have shocked me if she went into the faith chapter in Hebrews, because this woman goes by Elijah, who we don't really know if she already knew. I've heard of Elijah. We have no. At least I didn't find anything that said she did already know Elijah. He's saying that God is telling her to do this and have this, and you'll be taken care of. And does she hesitate in doing it? I mean, she doesn't hesitate to give Elijah the chunk of her last meal here. I mean, now think of that. She's got her son. I mean, I wouldn't have seen anything wrong with this, me personally. This is a random stranger here that's coming up here, and you're trying to do everything you can to hold on, and you know this is your last source of food here, and she's willing to offer it to this person, this special person now in her eyes, because he's now relayed to her that I'm with God, and God's saying do this. But I don't know. Just tell me y'all's thoughts on this woman with her, I don't know, her hospitality here, her faith, how much hospitality she has as part of her heart here. What'd y'all put down for this one? Very good. Very good. Was what now? Okay. Right, and I took that's me, but I took that to be, it doesn't really matter if I give you any, because I don't have enough to really give ourselves. It's not. I didn't take that to really mean she wasn't hospitable at the time, or didn't. But correct, she did say that first, and I could be misinterpreting that. I'm interpreting that to mean that it doesn't really matter if I give you a piece of this. I have literally a meal for me and my son. It's over. So I mean, I think the point was I really don't have enough to share, because we don't even have enough to share. And to me, that wasn't been really a bad response for doing that. Very good. Very good.
I wonder in verse 12, and I haven't looked into this at all, I just noticed it says, as the Lord your God lives. I wonder if she didn't know anything about God. She was saying, hey, your God says this is going to happen. Is it really going to happen? And then he goes on in 13 and says, do not fear. Do as I said, it's going to work out. But I was wondering when she said, as the Lord your God lives. I wonder if she really believed in God.
It corrected. Yeah, that's what mine says too. It says your God. It just, I don't know. I find a hard time wrapping my head around that there wasn't a concept of something there. Yeah, I mean, if you remember Rahab, I don't think was like obviously bound down to God for like the first chunk of years in her life. And who knows how much truly concept. I mean, she obviously had a concept. As much. I mean, I would think that at least the concept of God she must have known about. Now, whether or not she was already a follower, don't know. But just as Brad was saying before, just how once she knew what Elijah had said, how she got up immediately to start doing this after he told her the circumstance, and he said this will never get used up until the Lord gives rain again on the land, and that came to fruition. I also took out of this that it wasn't just her generous spirit, hospitable nature. It really hits to me that some people who are kind of stingy with things, we really don't have to do a big presentation to be hospitable. I think sometimes people, I'm not saying they use excuses. I think people really do believe that I just can't be hospitable if I don't just take them out to a really, really nice restaurant and then take them over and make sure that have them over for a really, really big meal. And that's just really not the case. You can be hospitable with not having to use a ton of resources. So I took that from this. I know sometimes we've had over. I know. There's been multiple occasions where people have had people over after the work group meetings at church tonight, just for ice cream. I think that's something we've gone to Dairy Queen before. Some people, or we've gone to just little things where there's a few snacks here and there, and people, there's not. It wasn't about the food, and it wasn't about the presentation. We're not here to throw a Super Bowl party to be hospitable every time. It's about the people and the relationship. That's really that's another thing I got from this. That's what I took from her. It's just it doesn't take a lot to have that generous, hospitable nature about you, and whether or not this person knew of God or worshiped God already. To me, she's already established a trait of this hospitableness and this love for people. It's already part of her. Anyway.
There were many widows in Israel in the days of Elijah when the heavens were shut up and famine came over the land. But Elijah was sent to none of them, but to Zarephath, the land of Sidon, to a woman who was a widow. Pretty clear indicator, I think, that Elijah would have been a foreigner with a foreign to her God. What did she know about Elijah? I mean, it could have been that she knew that he was the guy that caused the drought. At least that was how he was recognized by a lot of the Samaritans. So anyway, just adds a little color to me.
Okay. Very good. How would that make it even more special?
Yeah, good question. I mean, asking somebody to bring you a little water in a drought is a pretty big ask, I would say, in verse 10. And that's where there was no hesitation. She was doing that, as he said, and now bring me some bread, which, seems a little forward. But yeah, whatever she knew about him, her ability to serve in deep poverty was pretty impressive.
Very good. Absolutely. And whether or not, once again, we based on like what Michael said, we pretty good indication she had not been following God. We don't really know what happens to this woman after this, but I'd say that's a pretty good fire starter for her to switch switch over.
Sorry, I don't mean to jump off.
You're good.
Yeah, but you go all the way to the end of the chapter, verse 24. It appears it's not till Elijah in verse 24, she says, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and the word of the Lord is in your mouth." That would appear to me she wasn't thoroughly convinced when he just showed up. She did all this because of who she was, not because of who he was.
Very good. Definitely not thoroughly convinced after the miracle kept taking place day in, day after day. Very good. Yes. Fairly significant. Yeah. So, how many occasions in the Bible do we have somebody being brought back to life? This is one of the few. We have Lazarus, and then we have this one. And is that it? Dorcas. That's right, Dorcas. Yeah. Yeah. It's just it doesn't happen often. So very, very good point. So this is so that once again, if we assume that once again that God is not part of this is not a exactly godly woman, this woman, whether or not whatever character she had about, she had a part of her as being this loving, hospitable woman. So that leads me to believe even more, if this can be achieved, somebody who is not of potentially of already following God, that how much more should Christians have that on their heart and be hospitable? Okay, everybody ready to move on to Shunamite? I'm going to butcher that. Shunamite woman. 2 Kings 4. Let's go over 2 Kings 4. Somebody read verse. Hang on one second. I had that. I think I changed that up a little bit. I think I wanted to read one more verses for that. Yeah, I thought I'd switch it, but I didn't. 8 through 11. Somebody read 8 through 11. 2 Kings 4.
One day Elisha went to Shunamite, where a loved one lived who urged him to eat food. But whenever he passed that way, he would turn in there and eat food. And she said to her husband, "Behold, I know this man, this is a holy man of God, who is continually passing our way. Let us make a small room on the roof wall, put there for him a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp, so that whenever he comes to us, he can stay there." One day he came there, and he turned into the chamber and rested there.
Okay. So here we're talking about the Shunamite woman here. Remember, we had Abraham back in I guess Genesis 18, being the one to kind of ignite this. We got the husband. We got a looks like a husband and wife here. Okay, but the wife seems to be the one. I'm leading off with that because I want this to be understood. Obviously, this is something that is a role for Christians, not a role for any one person, any one gender, any one role in the church. This is something that's on all of us. It says a well-to-do woman. Does anyone want to explain to me what a well-to-do woman means? Okay, I think it'll be part of it. Okay, that's definitely a part of it. I took the way she's kind of looked at there, among others. Very good. Anybody else on well-to-do before we keep going? Okay. Okay, so do we have any indication that she knows who Elisha is when she first comes up here? Okay, now Michael may be able to provide some kind of history on this, but she somehow, do we think that she knows he's a man of God when he first gets there, or do we think she knows he's a man of God after a few trips? That's what I've gathered, that it takes a few trips. We're not going to here spend time on Elisha's character here, but obviously we could dive into Elisha on a lot of we talk about wearing Christian name. Okay, Elisha was definitely obviously doing that. Something among his speech or his conduct was very contagious to this family. I don't think they're just going to invite some random guy back every night of the week if there's not something's pretty special about this guy. Roger, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you look too, in this room, what do they separate? What do the pictures going, what do you use those things to do? Obviously, he was reading, studying,
Very good.
so, so he equips him, here's what she sees, that helps her, what does she think to see? The person that does it, that's a great, powerful lesson that, in terms of, conduct, to be an indication of something about that condition. And like I say, word, that people can perceive.
Very good. And before she makes the room after realizing there's something pretty special about this dude. But she was already recurringly inviting him for a meal. I mean, before she understood this, the amount of hospitality, hey, you just keep coming by. I'll take care of you. Just to provide a simple meal for somebody to take them in. There was somebody I used to work with, one of my old county offices, who said that's how they got to meet a stranger one time. It wasn't like they was just completely random that they'd heard of this person, but that he just kind of they called him like a wanderer, kind of walking around, whatever. Just they said he was always a friendly guy, and they said we'll take him in one time. He became a really good friend for him after that. When they started inviting, they said you come here once a week, whatever, and he cleaned himself up and everything. So how much impact we can have on somebody for doing these little special acts is a big deal. I appreciate it. All your comments today. We're going to pick up with the early Christians in Acts 4 next time. We'll finish up hospitality.